This week we bring you the update on Post Huntsville Hamfest, a little bit about me, the latest news from the ARRL, and some news about right here in Tennessee with amateurs involved with localized flooding. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Ham Radio Guy, and good morning, afternoon, whatever time you might be listening to this podcast. It's your host, Marvin W0MET, who's the Ham Radio Guy. We are bringing you the latest of topics, news, and information each week right here to this show. I'd like to get started off on this podcast with a little bit about me and this podcast, as I've not formally introduced this show and myself yet to this point. I am Marvin Turner, W0MET. I have been licensed as an amateur radio operator for over 26 years now. I live right here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, about 30 miles south of Nashville. I work full-time as an IT support engineer for a healthcare company. I am the president of the local Stones River Amateur Radio Club, a Tennessee ARRL ham technical specialist, assisting in getting new hams licensed and promoting amateur radio. One of my goals with that is to ensure that new hams have resources, or at least, have access to where or how to get those resources to continue to learn and grow in the hobby. I'm also a volunteer examiner and a certified ARRL instructor. So, some of the things I enjoy doing, just getting out, doing POTA activations when I have time, working on amateur radio projects like I did earlier this year, building my own shack in a box with my FT991 radio and the FTM 400. Last year, one of my projects was developing a couple fox hunts. So to help the local club in doing our annual fox hunt events. So certainly enjoyed doing those type of events along the way. I really started this podcast back in the middle of July, just a little over a month ago, actually. This is my third podcast, I believe, and I have an array of more topics and guests certainly to come. So, please stay tuned for those. The equipment, I continue to improve that as I'm purchasing some of that podcasting equipment as I can. I'm currently using a Heil PR20 mic and looking to upgrade to a more of a physical soundboard than I am a virtual one that I'm currently using. And I'm also looking at a different mic in the next month, probably the PR40 from Heil, but that may be subject to change. My website, thehamradio.com, which you can visit, is up and running, and it probably took the longest to really get this built and try and get it right. There's still a few changes still to come, but you can find each week's podcast on there as well. The reason I started this, as I listen to more news and podcasts on my own way to work, I, I've watched, a lot of the people do the YouTube videos along the way and everything, and those are great, and it's great to watch them when you can. But, I don't really have a lot of time to read books or watch those videos sometimes, but I get my travel to and from work, which is about 45 minutes every day. So it certainly gives me a little bit more time to listen to those podcasts and listen to some news from the different sources through amateur radio and kind of keep up on them and keep apprised of what's happening. And so I thought, how handy it would be to have about a half-hour podcast each week I could put together where amateur radio operators in a drive once a week could listen to a podcast, learning something and getting an update on some news and information from ARRL that might directly affect them, or something they might need to know about changes to a band or rule that might be up and coming or proposed by the FCC. So, therefore, the Ham Radio Guy was born. My hope is that listeners can reach out for answers to questions through the website, or even just, follow me on Twitter as well. And I can answer them on the air following, each week after the show, and we can, get some answers and responses back, hopefully sooner than, waiting for the next show. But I certainly, want to make that part of the podcast in the future here as we gain new listeners and more. As a technical specialist for new hams for the amateur radio podcast, I really hope that this helps fill part of that mission that I've set in becoming a technical specialist with them for new hams. So again, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or topics you want to have covered during that time. Moving on, I just returned this afternoon, so it's late getting this podcast out this week. Usually I try and produce it on Saturday afternoons. But returned from the Huntsville Ham Fest this week and this afternoon. As many of you might have seen, Josh Naz, Ki6NAZ, or any of the other YouTubes live streaming from Gigaparts at the Huntsville Ham Fest on Saturday. I was able to spend some time with them and down there on Saturday and enjoy that. It was a very good time with them, in fact. Getting to see them as the YouTube personalities that we do all the time, but actually getting to meet some of them for the first time. So that was quite exciting. The Huntsville Ham Festival, it was great to have a Ham Fest again, and I was certainly able to pick up some long-awaited new equipment for my shack, which include a 600-watt capable tuner for my new amplifier system, and an external speaker for my station, for my base radio here, my Yaesu, and a couple other items I found along the way. But what I really found most was the lack of several of the large dealers like Diamond, which we knew was going to be there, but then they pulled out prior to the event. But really, companies like Yaesu or Kenwood was not there, MFJ, Heil, or even Ham Radio Outlet for that matter. But you would think those companies would want to either promote those new products or put them out there, because they've not really done a Ham Fest since February of 2019, with the last one being in Orlando at Hamcation. So, which is, by the way, the next largest Ham Fest probably coming up national wise. And I did speak with some of those event organizers while I was there, and they said it's a go one way or the other. So they're going to make that go. Hopefully that will continue to ring true, and that will not change with some of the COVID elements that are occurring out there, and anything that's going to change that direction, maybe even politically. But we won't get into that here on this show. So, start saving your dollars now and hoping that Hamcation in February of 2022 will be even better and larger than Huntsville. My few takeaways from Huntsville was that it was certainly did double its space and size overall, which was nice, and gave plenty of room between the walkways in the, some might call it the boneyard, or even the swap tables. That room had certainly increased, but we also had more of those type of vendors there this year, finding some great treasures. And it looked like many people did find a lot of great treasures there and walking away with some good deals. So I know one of my members of the club here locally was able to find a DMR radio, and he made a good deal on that one through Motorola. So he was excited about that, to get that in some of those used equipment tables. So that was awesome. I was able to really probably top off my weekend in Huntsville with one of the funnest things I enjoy doing, and it was really kind of a wild ride this morning. Actually, I did part of this activation with Mark, KD4EYF, a dear friend of mine, and we were able to go out to the Monsanto State Park, and that's Park Kilo -1048 State Park, and work some POTA activation this morning. And the cool thing about this morning, whether it was Sunday morning or just the fact that maybe it was in Huntsville because of the weekend and people are paying attention to what was happening there, between me and him, we were able to work about 49 contacts in 55 minutes, which was actually pretty cool, I think. Even could have probably had a few more, but I decided to have a few conversations, and also a few visitors did stop along the way asking what we were doing or how we were doing. And in fact, some of those were other hams as well, which, were familiar with what we're doing. So I just want to say thank you to all the hunters out there this morning. Certainly made our job a little easier in knocking out that park and another state while I was in Alabama this weekend. So thank you for that very much as well. And so, I'm kind of going to leave that as the show for this week. And we'll, wrap up with some news here. So, as we move into news, and I've got a fair amount of that actually this week. We begin with a developing story with local Tennessee hams right here in Middle Tennessee, assisting TEMA Communications as they have been activated to assist with some of the localized flooding that is occurring in some of the Tennessee counties where more than 20 people have died. I think 40 or more are still reported not found as a result of the severe flooding that has occurred on Friday night into Saturday, where they were receiving like 8 or 9 inches an hour of rain. I believe this has been reported as the most severe flooding weather event in Middle Tennessee, especially in Humphreys County, where it was reported that even the communication center for the 911 had flooded at one point, but apparently the service has now been restored. So we're good there. So that's good to get the 911 back in system working. I'm not sure that any amateurs had any assistance with that part of it, but certainly got that back up and running. I know Verizon AT&T was bringing in some cell towers to help with public safety and other people needing assistance for towers during that time. So, certainly continue to give you more on that developing story as time comes around. The second thing we'll go into is the ARRL released on Friday that the Volunteer Monitor Report Program had released its July report, where several technician class licensees were operating out of their privilege zone on FT8 and were sent advisory notices. And then the other report included also several others in Georgia, New Jersey, received advisory notices for failing to identify properly, repeated communications with unlicensed stations, and making on-the-air threats directed at another operator. Total hours logged for that was over 1,736 on HF frequencies and 2,185 on VHF and UHF. So, a lot of hours, way over 4,000 hours looks like probably totaled, monitoring the airwaves for FCC operators not following good protocol, FCC rules, and practices. Just remind everybody for a quick moment here that amateur radio rules for operation are really a privilege and not a right, and they can certainly be taketh away. And so, we ask that, you continue to follow those rules and protocols. And, I know every now and then we need a reminder, but, stay within your band class and don't be making threats on the air. Again, that privilege can be taketh away. So make sure you follow those rules and proper protocol, and, kind of one represents all, kind of. I hate to say that, but, we do have, very similar to police officers. They get their reputation. One person does bad, and they all are bad. But I don't want that. But it does, put a negativity on the overall perception of amateur radio operators. So, please, follow those rules. Another big news I found, WSJTX has released a new beta for beta testers with individuals interested in testing out their new features. This is the WSJTX 2.5.0, and they want you to try out the features and provide feedback to the development team. So if you're interested, reach out and try that. Might be worth it for some new digital operations for those that are into the digital operations. MFJ production manager Michael Enos, KB5YJF, known as the world expert on the Meritron amplifiers, has died at just the young age of 53. So we send our prayers out to that family for him passing so early. So, sympathy for that family, and prayers definitely, I'm sure that was very unexpected. And finally, for news this week, for all of you that enjoy getting out and doing POTA or SOTA events, the new MOTA, Minds on the Air, is engaging new hams to get out and operate. The creator of the site, John Fuller, WJ0NF, expects this to grow like many of the other outdoor portable operations like SOTA and POTA, Islands on the Air. but said he would like to see operators to create limited edition QSL cards of the events, bearing an image of the relevant mine, and eventually he's hoping that a database will be built as this continues to grow for Mines on the Air. For more information, you can visit his website, minesontheair.com, and his activation requirements that you need to activate a mine. So, hopefully some good news there. Another opportunity to get out and operate with Mines on the Air. So that will bring this week to a close. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you will submit that subscribe button and share with friends. And I hope that you learned something as well this week as we help you in your ham radio operations each and every week. As always, I say 73 W0MET.